Yeah. Okay. Hello, everybody. Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem. Poo poo poo. My first reaction is a lot of people, and that's good. God bless you all. I'm happy to be here. I got to say l'chaim Rabbi Konnikov. L'chaim everybody. I'm drinking coffee in the meantime. I left my cheating paper at home. I wrote a bunch of notes. I left them in my printer. So now you're going to find out what happens when you show up. I wrote notes and I didn't bring them. I left them at home. Okay, first of all, Shalom Aleichem to everybody. Hello. No, give me a minute. I'm not going to. No, let me say something and then give me a name. I spoke to the rabbi last night. I spoke to Rabbi Konnikov last night. And we talked about what I should talk about. And I said to Rabbi Konnikov, what would happen if I would share with you what this day means to me? You know, Chabad is very big. Chabad is very pluralistic. Chabad is very open. So many people are involved in Chabad on so many levels, to so many different degrees. And everybody knows that the heart of Lubavitch is the Rebbe. Everybody understands that the pulse, the beat, the energy, the direction, the motivation, the vision, the wisdom, the principle comes from one person, comes from the Rebbe. But especially for people who are a little younger, who've never met the Rebbe, often people don't appreciate not the personality of the Rebbe, but the person. What I mean to say is this. The Rebbe is a great man. You know, he's a very great man, incredibly great man. The truth is beyond our fathoming. I'm biased. I tell my students all the time, born, bred, and brainwashed. I was born in Chabad. This is all I know, and I'm prepared to admit that I'm not objective, and I'm happy about it. I teach girls in seminary, so they have to make every year a sweatshirt to mark their year. They put all the names in the back. So on the sleeve they wrote, "Born, bred, and brainwashed day." I'm born, bred, and brainwashed. A lot of us are. What I think people don't know enough is the degree to which our relationship with the Rebbe was individual and personal. And I think it's very important. I mean, especially today, we're marking the Rebbe's yahrzeit. It's an important day. I mean, my children, none of them knew the Rebbe. They're all born after, and they struggle to understand the place of the Rebbe in their life. They struggle to develop a relationship with the Rebbe. One of my sons spent the entire day asking himself, should I be happy or sad? You know, how are you supposed to look at a day like today? He never met the Rebbe. He's named after him. His birthday is actually today. He was born on the Rebbe's yahrzeit. I'm supposed to know how many years ago. I think 22. I'm embarrassed to admit. And his name is Mendel. And he vacillates between being very upset, very disappointed, never met the Rebbe, didn't know the Rebbe. He's a Chossid. He's a good kid. And being told that that's not the right reaction, it's not the right response. So before I talked about happy and sad, we'll get to that a little later. I just want to spend a few minutes. I'm not going to give a long talk because we have to interrupt. And I got permission from the rabbi to sing. That's the one thing I remember from my notes, is that in this Chabad house we can actually sing. I feel one of the greatest gifts of Lubavitch that's underappreciated is our singing, our Negina. Rabbi Meir, right? Meir sings. So many Chabad houses, the people don't get to taste Chabad Negunim, not Hava Nagila, which is also wonderful, and Am Yisrael Chai. But we got good Negunim. They take a little while to learn. But once you learn them, they're the language of the soul. They come from the soul. They go to the soul. But I want to begin the Farbrengen just with this, and maybe I'll see how it goes. If it goes well, I'll talk about it some more. My father and Rabbi Kanakov's father grew up in a Lubavitch which could fit in this room. When my father was yeshiva, there were far fewer boys in the whole yeshiva than there were people sitting at this table. My father and his father friends from school. But how many boys were there? How many bocha there were in the whole Lubavitch? 40? And they were divided up amongst 3 different yeshivas? 50? It was tiny. It was after the war. Everybody had a story, and few of them were happy. My father's an orphan. My father doesn't even remember his mother. My father does not remember his own mother. His mother passed away in 1941. It was the beginning of the Second World War in Russia. He was 2.5. But that was normal, you know. If your life was miserable, you were a regular guy, you know. If life was good, there was something wrong with you. I think today we feel the same way. We're trying to look for reasons to be miserable because God forbid we're not miserable. Then it's a rachmanas on us. There's nothing wrong with me. Vey is mir. I got to find the problems to have a way to live. That's a new American disease that the Jews are very good at. But that generation didn't have to look for trouble. The trouble found them. They came to this country. My father came to this country at the age of 15. He had a father, Baruch Hashem. His father had remarried. But the role that Rebbe played in their lives, the measure of involvement of the Rebbe in their lives, it's beyond the father. It was so intimate. He paid so much attention to every person. One of the gifts that the Rebbe had is an incredible memory and an ability to hold on to information. If you told the Rebbe something once, you never had to repeat it, ever. And he met 1,000 people. He remember what you said. It's remarkable. He knew these kids who he was rearing in his yeshiva, who would later become his emissaries. They'd become the first generation of Chabad Shluchim. And he literally fathered them. He was involved in their lives very, very intimately, very personally. And he paid attention. And he directed and he advised. And if you needed to focus on one particular trait that the Rebbe imparted to all of these, to that entire generation, he did not let them for a moment to be defeatist, to be victims. And they were victims. He insisted on giving them a point of view of not only a positive future, but a positive present and a positive sense of life. And he raised them. He took a bunch of broken people and made them great. It's, you know, when you make broken people great, the greatness is also broken. There's a lot of trauma, but still, the alternative would have been much worse. My father's sister, who, Mayor, right? Remember from Worcester is Miriam Neville, right? You remember from Worcester? Remember from Worcester? My father's sister told me she was also a Russian immigrant, came to this country, an incredible person, brilliant and beautiful and broken. I think it's quite accurate. Brilliant and beautiful and broken. She said the Rebbe stopped her in the street and just chatted with her. And he had this kind of relationship with all the kids in Lubavitch. And he literally took them to their chuppahs, whether he physically carried them or he directed them. And he directed their lives towards meaning and towards positivity, towards trust, towards hope, towards a belief in a positive future. And they're our grandparents. They're my parents. They're his grandparents. They're the founding community of the Lubavitch in America, which is really the basis for the thousands and thousands of emissaries that Chabad now has. My generation, Rabbi Kanakov's generation, the Rebbe was a big, intimidating Rebbe who was far more distant. I was in a yechidus. I was in a private audience with the Rebbe with my family at the age of 9.5. That was the last time I was in the Rebbe's private presence until after Gimmel Tamuz. I remember the event vaguely. I was not a particularly sharp 9.5-year-old. If I understood the significance of the meeting, I probably would have paid better attention. And there's a lot of confusion, you know. Fact and fancy tend to weave together over the course of time. So I'm not even sure what I remember. I'm not even sure what actually happened, but I remember being in the Rebbe's room. But that was the last time. My bar mitzvah was the year of the Rebbe's heart attack. I didn't have an opportunity. My younger brother went into the Rebbe for his bar mitzvah. I missed that opportunity because the Rebbe was not well. He wasn't seeing people. So my relationship with the Rebbe is not personal the way my father's was. Rabbi Konnikov, Mrs. Konnikov's relationship with the Rebbe is more remote. But the truth of the matter was that anybody who was around the Rebbe, if you were for any period of time, and you paid attention, understood that he sees everyone as an individual. The Rebbe could sit in a room. Have you ever watched films of those Farbrengens? They put them on, I'm sure you put them on the gym. You see a Farbrengen, the Rebbe sitting at the table all by himself. Nobody sits next to him, which is quite unusual. And there's thousands of men in a room, and there's women behind the screen. And the Rebbe talks. When the Rebbe talks, he looks at a column. He doesn't look at anybody. He looks at a beam. Because whoever he would look at would have to close his eyes, you see. The Rebbe's eyes were fire. They looked through you. But between the talks, he'd look around the room and he'd look at you. It looks very casual. It doesn't seem like it's much. He's saying, hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. It's good to see you again. How you doing? You know, very, almost politically correct. What you don't understand is, you can't understand it unless you experienced it. If the Rebbe looked at you, and he did this, there was absolutely no doubt in your mind that he looked at you. Because if you were not sure if he looked at you, you were sure he wasn't looking at you. Because the Rebbe's eyes, even though he was elderly and he didn't see that well, would look through you. My experience, I tell this to people all the time, the Rebbe raised me with his eyes. I had few conversations, and they were one-liners. He talked and I kept my mouth shut. He would look at you for a fraction of a second. Your eyes would touch his and his eyes would touch yours. And there was a conversation that was very meaningful. It was about growth, it was about real things. You know, one of the things about the Rebbe was you could never ever schmaltz him up. There was no way you could get him to be interested in anything other than what's really important. And his eyes said that to me, to you, to him, to her. And he talked to us. As big as Lubavitch was, and as many as there were in a room, when you walked by him and you received $1, or the Farbrengens, he'd look at you during a Farbrengen, just take a look in your direction, and you were very careful. I mean, I was always raised, when you look, in general, when you meet people, you look into their eyes, but with the Rebbe, you wanted to make eye contact, and it was very quick, but that moment was magical, that moment was real. In my experience, the Rebbe knew me well. He knew me personally. And he cared about me and he understood me. And he knew not only the good stuff. The Rebbe would look at me sometimes and I could feel pride. The Rebbe could look at me other times and he could feel sad. And I knew it. And the Rebbe could look at me sometimes and say, would you move? And all there was eyes. But there was an enormous amount of communication. What I'm trying to communicate to you, what I want to share with you, is that even the generation that we belong to, when Lubavitch was so big, our relationship with the Rebbe was really, really deeply personal. And I think you have to understand this. What is the secret of Chabad? Chabad is an unusual movement. It's historic. You cannot find a movement like this, I think, in all of Jewish history. We have thousands of young men and women who are quite modern, who dedicate their entire lives to other people at great personal expense. Why do they do it? Why? And the real answer to the question is because of a personal bond. This is not a club. This is not fandom. This is not, we belong to the winning team. There is a personal relationship between every young man and young woman who goes out and does this work and the Rebbe. From my generation, from the generation before. And the thing that's so remarkable, it's true of my children's generation. I have 3 married children. They're all, thank God, close enough for us to drive to. You understand? I have a nephew who's in Ghana, Africa, and a niece that's in Cambodia. You understand? My children live in Pennsylvania and Connecticut and New York. So we're okay so far. Those children were born after they never saw the Rebbe. I have a son who has a photo with himself and the Rebbe. The Rebbe was after the stroke. He was about 6 months old. My wife walked by, and he cherishes this photo like the whole world depends on it. He's a little tiny baby. He has no recollection. Somehow, this truth, this phenomena, that this gigantic Rebbe, what made him so great was the fact that he really, really never spoke to a group of people. He spoke to individuals. And when he was talking to thousands, he was talking to each one separately. And he had this ability to really care about everybody he interfaced with, everybody he met. And those of us who are, BBB, born, bred, brainwashed, this is the secret. It works because there's something very real about our relationship with the Rebbe. And I find it remarkable, but it works because of my children. My children have a real relationship with the Rebbe, a personal relationship. It's very, very individual. So this day is really important to us, to Chabad, to Lubavitcher Chassidim. In any way, I'm not excluding you. I'm just saying, I want you to understand how we feel about this. This is our relationship with the Rebbe is not a big rabbi on a mountaintop, even though he was a big rabbi on a very big mountain. It's very personal. It's very individual, because this is what makes a Rebbe a Rebbe. It's a special kind of human being who has the ability to see big picture and never overlook any detail. And every detail is a person. And so this day, for us, when I think about today, and it's 30 years is a very long time. It's a very long time. It's more than half my life. For my children, it's all their lives. Not to see the Rebbe, not to have that direct inspiration. Lubavitch works, Chabad works, because these personal relationships continue. Now I got to stop talking. I told Rabbi Kanaka I'm just going to speak for a minute. So I want to just say that. I want to give you your challenge. I don't know how you feel about this, or if you have any feelings about this. But I tell this to people wherever I go. I challenge each of you to figure out a way of developing a personal relationship with the Rebbe. To have a personal relationship with the Rebbe, you have to understand him. You have to study what he teaches. Unfortunately, you have to visit the grave. But many people who have never physically met him. There's a guy who wrote a book. What's the name of the book? What's his name? He wrote a book. Somebody know? No. This past year there's a book going around. I haven't met the Rebbe 500 times.
Oh, yeah. That's a new book.
There's a fellow.
I saw like a book recently published about the Rebbe.
Right. He calls it, I haven't met the Rebbe 500. This is like a fellow who used to be a rabbi, a conservative rabbi, I think. He's become a Chabadnik. And the name of his book is I haven't met the Rebbe 500 times, meaning Nisanov. I haven't met the Rebbe 500 times. Which what he's trying to say is, I never physically saw the Rebbe, and I meet all of these people who've seen the Rebbe, and they all remind me they haven't seen the Rebbe in some kind of weird way, some kind of odd way. It adds up to a meeting. It adds up to a relationship. It's important for me to share with you that this is what Hasidim always were. The Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov founded the Hasidic movement almost 3 centuries ago. This year, Hasidus is 290 years old officially. And the Hasidic movement is, to the greatest extent, the relationship with very holy people and very ordinary people. At the heart of the Hasidic movement is the tzaddik. And there's the story of this tzaddik and the story of this tzaddik, and I'm sure you've seen it and you've read it, you've heard it and you've absorbed it. These tzaddikim had personal relationships with us. And we have personal relationships with them. And it is a goal to feel like the Rebbe is yours. It's a goal, it's not easy. But people have that experience who, I've never met him 500 times, because that's what it is. It's not just Rebbe, he's a smart guy, he's got good ideas. He's a person, a gigantic person, but a person who so deeply cares about us that a lot of us feel that care. And it defines our lives. It defines our lives. So this is how I want to start this ring by saying L'chaim. I'm a whatever I am, a big chassid, a little chassid, I'm a chassid. BBB, born, bred, brainwashed. So I want to give all of us a bracha that the Rebbe should be something that is personal to us and not just this great leader who has a cosmic influence on the whole world. L'chaim, everybody. L'chaim tevim l'shalom. L'chaim l'bracha. I need a little something. I'm drinking coffee.